The Democrats, the modern Democrat Party and all their partners in the corporate media, they really, really do think that they can do anything they want. They can say anything they want. They can paint any picture that they want to paint for you. And you're going to believe it because they truly, truly do believe that you're stupid. They believe that every single one of us are stupid. And they really, really do believe that they're in charge. And I'm going to be honest. I mean, they have their work cut out for them for sure. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of hours of Kamala Harris just proving that she really is just Joe Biden 2.0 with a slightly more operational brain. But they still think, even with all that video out there, they think that they can control the narrative. And they're gonna treat her like a Nobel Prize winning freaking beauty queen from now until November 5th. And for whatever reason, they're starting with trying to convince you that she never had anything to do with the worst border crisis in history.
This is the kind of thing that is playing out all over conservative media. I just want to do a little bit of record correcting. There's not record crime right now. Number one, Harris was put in charge, as you said earlier, of combating the roots of immigration. She was not and is not the border czar. I
mean, damn, man, just in that quick segment, man, for all these people want to talk about, Donald Trump and all his lies, that was nothing but lies. I mean, they claim that crime is down when really in reality, all that's down is local jurisdictions actually reporting their crime stats to the FBI. The FBI has basically made it very, very difficult and very time consuming for any state or local law enforcement to report any crime, right? Over the last few years, at least. And I think we're starting to see exactly why they've done that. But that was a lie. And Kamala Harris, who is now, of course, the anointed one, she says that Kamala Harris was never the border czar. And you're going to hear more of that. They say she was only responsible for dealing with the root causes. And obviously, I can't wait to hear more about that and hear more about what she actually did. But here's the problem with these shameless propagandists. And here's the problem that they're going to have, right? It's all on tape. Most of them literally are personally on tape confronting her and complaining about her ineffectiveness in dealing with the border.
And the Biden administration did task Vice President Kamala Harris with the issue of migrant crossings, naming her the so-called border czar.
I've asked her, the VP, today, because she's the most qualified person to do it, to lead our efforts with Mexico and the Northern Triangle and the countries that help. We're going to need help in stemming the movement of so many folks stemming the migration to our southern border.
We've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't understand the point.
Guys, let's all get together, make a GoFundMe or something. We got to help Kamala retire. I mean, this is a woman, she deserves to go see Europe. So let's thank Kamala for her brave and selfless service to democracy and send her on a very, very long dream trip to Europe. And I definitely, there's a couple good neighborhoods in Paris that I think she would love to see. But this is where we're at, man. I mean, these people, they're in full denial. And it's funny, man, the same people that say that Republicans are panicking because of Kamala, which is funny when you think about it. I mean, the Democrats literally ran a coup against an incumbent president that had already won the primary because they knew he couldn't win. They installed the real life incarnation of the character from Veep. Those people who did that say that Republicans are panicking. I mean, that's pretty funny when you think about it, right? But anyway, these people are now actually in panic. They're panicking, trying to rewrite the narrative, especially on the border, man. But like I said, there is thousands and thousands of hours of tape.
I think that people underestimate how easy it is to become a U.S. citizen.
Claudia Rivera knows all too well. She spent her Saturday at this immigrant resource fair in San Francisco, sponsored by Community Support Services and District Attorney Kamala Harris.
Your immigrant status, whatever it is, does not, in our mind's eye, designate you as a criminal.
Harris wants immigrants to know that San Francisco police and prosecutors will protect illegal immigrants if they are victims of crime. Claudia Rivera says she came here illegally 3 years ago and needs a good job, medical services, and yes, citizenship.
I'm a good woman. I'm not criminal. I make it all things very good. I need help.
We had a very spirited debate on this stage last night on the topic of decriminalization of the border. If you'd be so kind, raise your hand if you think it should be a civil offense rather than a crime to cross the border without documentation. Can we keep the hands up so we could see them?
I am in favor of saying that we're not going to treat people who are undocumented across the border as criminals. That's correct. That is correct.
Must be addressed.
The bill also says, quote, every individual who is a resident of the United States is entitled to benefits for health care services under this act. Not every individual who's a citizen, but every individual who's a resident. So you support giving universal health care, Medicare for all, to people who are in this country illegally?
Let me just be very clear about this. I am opposed to any policy that would deny in our country any human being from access to public safety, public education, or public health, period.
Luckily, there are actually a few times in her life that she said, let me be very clear. And then she actually went on to be very clear. So this is who Kamala Harris really is, man. She's going to tell you that she tried to stop the border problems when in reality, all she's tried to do is stop the border from actually existing. Like her entire career, most of her adult life, she spent trying to destroy our immigration system. And honestly, the most impactful thing she's ever done to stop the most dangerous land migration route in human history is to tell people, don't come. It's the same thing she said to Russia, same thing she said to Iran, just don't. This is their policy, right? But she told migrants, don't come. But at the same time, her actions have been to welcome people, right? And don't get it twisted, man. When you tell people that if you come here, you'll be provided safety and security and schooling and medical care, you are literally directing the entire world to risk their lives to come here. And this is who these people are, man. And this is why I say, they're co-conspirators in the media. They really, really do have their work cut out for them. I mean, they're working hard. They're working hard. Don't forget, I mean, the Biden-Harris failures, they belong just as much to the woman that had the front row seat to all the elder abuse.
Soon after President Biden dropped out of the race and endorsed Vice President Harris, Republican Senator Tom Cotton posted this on social media. Quote, Joe Biden succumbed to a coup by Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, and Hollywood donors, ignoring millions of Democratic primary votes. Donald Trump took a bullet for democracy. And Senator Cotton of Arkansas joins me now. Senator, thanks so much for being with us. As much as any politician I've seen, you choose your language very carefully. So why call this a coup and not January 6th?
Well, John, look what happened just last weekend. You had Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, George Clooney, Hollywood moguls, Wall Street bankers, all working behind closed doors to bring unbearable pressure to bear on Joe Biden, who in the end threw in the towel. And now you have the Democratic Party uniting around Kamala Harris, who not only has never won a Democratic primary, she's never won a single vote for president, yet they've installed her as their nominee. That's what they want to go forward with in this election, even as we still have questions
I get that,
about Kamala Harris's role in all of this. Kamala Harris.
You use the language coup, and again, you've never said that for January 6th, and as far as I know, no cops were beaten up, no one defecated in the Capitol, there was no criminal trespass in terms of changing the Democratic candidates, were there?
Just listen to this poor guy, man. Powerful forces bringing a duly elected president and presumptive nominee to heel, not because he's got the same broken brain that they hid from us for over 3 years, probably more, but because they're worried about him actually losing. They removed him, and then they installed someone that no one has ever voted for. And honestly, she isn't much smarter. I mean, he says that's not a coup, but if some angry protester punched a cop and crapped in the hallway or sat in Nancy's chair, then that is a coup. That's what it takes to be a coup, I guess. I mean, obviously, these are not serious people. And Cotton made a very, very good point that I think might end up being Harris's greatest liabilities. I mean, she's got a lot of liabilities, but it's probably going to be the biggest one. We don't know yet exactly what her role in the elder abuse of Joe Biden was. I mean, no one knows her culpability. And honestly, it's entirely possible and probably the most probable that she played along with this scam because she knew that she never, ever could win a real primary. She'd never win a general election. And the only way that she'd ever become president was to drag Joey over the finish line and then push him out sometime next year. I mean, that's my guess. I'm not putting out a theory, but that's just highly likely that that's what was supposed to be the plan.
Well, no, but what you get with Kamala Harris is a failed prosecutor who wouldn't seek the death penalty for cop killers, even though her fellow San Francisco Democrat Dianne Feinstein wanted to. Kamala Harris also has to answer questions about what's happened over the last 3.5 years. She was not just a part of the conspiracy of silence about Joe Biden's decline, she was the leader of it. She has said time and time again that he's fit as a fiddle, that he's sharp as a tack. When Robert Hur in February refused to bring criminal charges against Joe Biden, in large part because he said he was a failing, feeble, frail old man, Kamala Harris came out and savaged him in the most strident terms. So the American people deserve to know, what did Kamala Harris know and when did she know it?
You know, it is interesting. You and others have been very critical of Joe Biden when he was running, saying he couldn't serve another 4 years. But when the Democratic Party and Joe Biden himself agrees with you finally, you criticize them. Isn't that a double standard?
Well, John, what I've always said is that Joe Biden was obviously declining. He probably wasn't fit to be president. But even if he was 20 years younger, he still would have been a failed president because he was too liberal. And the same is true of Kamala Harris. She is a San Francisco liberal. She's responsible for all of the failed Biden-Harris policies. As vice president, she presides over the Senate, casts votes to break ties. She literally cast the tie-breaking vote for the trillions of dollars of spending that unleashed record high inflation. Joe Biden appointed her border czar. We've had more than 10 million illegal aliens cross our border with Kamala Harris.
You know that's
John,
actually
absolutely
not
true.
No, she was appointed. What she charged with doing was dealing with the diplomatic effort in the Northern Triangle, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. She was never picked as the border czar. You can criticize what she did on immigration, but she was never the border czar, correct?
Well, John, Joe Biden said that's what she was going to do. Now, maybe she wanted to limit it because she said things in the past during her failed campaign for president, like she wanted to decriminalize illegal entry into this country, or she wanted to abolish the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency.
I hate to stop it so quick, man, but just look at this poor guy's face, right? I'm going to run that back, but he literally goes back to his notes. He hears border czar. But after years and years and years of calling her the border czar himself, probably, he doesn't even know what he's supposed to say about Kamala Harris and the border. So just, he looks at his notes. Just look at this guy. He gets his campaign supplied talking points off the sheet, and then he tries to sell it, right? He doesn't actually believe it. You can see it on his face. And Tom Cotton is just too sharp for that kind of garbage.
Joe Biden appointed her border czar. We've had more than 10 million illegal aliens cross our border with Kamala Harris.
You know that's
John,
actually
absolutely
not true.
true.
No, she was appointed. What she charged with doing was dealing with the diplomatic effort in the Northern Triangle, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. She was never picked as the border czar. You can criticize what she did on immigration, but she was never the border czar, correct?
Well, John, Joe Biden said that's what she was going to do. Now, maybe she wanted to limit it because she said things in the past during her failed campaign for president, like she wanted to decriminalize illegal entry into this country, or she wanted to abolish the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency. Again, Kamala Harris is a San Francisco liberal who would just continue the failed Biden-Harris policies, or as a matter of fact, probably make them worse. If you look at her record as the most liberal senator, even more liberal than Bernie Sanders.
It sounded, up until this point, it sounded like you would rather run against Joe Biden than Vice President Harris. Is that true?
Oh, I'm like Donald. I agree with Donald Trump on this. It doesn't matter who the Democrats run. They can take Joe Biden out of the White House. They can't take the failed liberal ideology out of their party. And Kamala Harris probably embodies that failed ideology more than anyone. A San Francisco liberal who has consistently voted to spend trillions of dollars, that's unleashed inflation, that's defended wide open borders, and supported a failed foreign policy that has brought chaos and war around the world.
You call her a failed San Francisco liberal, which is interesting given that when she was running for president and then picked as VP in 2020, the Trump campaign actually went after her for being too tough on crime when she was attorney general and she worked in law enforcement inside California.
That's an interesting take for sure, but I mean, just pure propaganda, man. I don't know if Cotton's going to catch that or remember back then, but the Trump campaign wasn't tough on her for being tough on crime. They were tough on her for being tough on petty marijuana charges while literally claiming that she was smoking weed the entire time. They were tough on her for manufacturing evidence and literally abusing her office. They were tough on her also for keeping, again, of course, black men in prison past their sentence expirations to work for the state. That's not quibbling about her stance on crime. That's about forcing her to confront literal corruption and hypocrisy. But this is what these people do, and this is who they are. The liberal corporate media are literally the communications wing of the Democrat Party.
California. This is from Katrina Pearson, who was a spokesperson for the campaign at that time. She said she fought to keep inmates locked up in overcrowded prisons so they could be used for cheap labor. She championed laws and put parents in jail for truancy and prosecuted the mentally ill, basically suggesting that she was too hard on crime there. Your reaction?
Well, there's many cases in which Kamala Harris has been extremely weak on crime. As I mentioned earlier, she refused to seek the death penalty for a cop killer. She let thousands of violent felons go. In the Senate, she promoted efforts, for instance, to eliminate the cash bail system, which many cities have done and had huge spikes in crime. Remember, in the summer of 2020, she posted a fundraiser to help bail out the BLM rioters who torched Minneapolis. That's Kamala Harris's record, a failed San Francisco liberal that's wrong for America.
Again, you've repeated that phrase several times. Clearly, that's something that you wanted to get out there today.
It also happens to be literally 100% true and completely verifiable.
You have been critical of President Trump for signing the First Step Act, which was passed in 2018 during his administration, championed by Jared Kushner, perhaps the most important staffer inside the White House at the time. This was criminal justice reform. You called it the worst mistake of the Trump administration. Have you spoken to President Trump about this?
Oh, on many occasions, and it's still much better than anything Kamala Harris has ever done on crime. Again, she's let a cop killer walk from the death penalty. She let thousands of felons go free. In the Senate, she championed efforts to eliminate the bail system. She posted fundraisers for BLM rioters in the summer of 2020. She continues to be a liberal ideologue on criminal justice matters, and frankly, on just about every other matter. That's why she had the most liberal voting record in the Senate, even more liberal than Bernie Sanders.
Just to before I let you go, since you brought up the Black Lives Matter protesters, President Trump, former President Trump, has said he would pardon many of the January 6th rioters. Does that mean you're against that?
No, John, he said he would consider it, and I think it's appropriate to consider it when you look at the unusually aggressive techniques the Department of Justice has used, weaponizing our legal system against, in some cases, people who weren't even inside the Capitol on that day. Now, of course, anyone who committed violence against law enforcement officials or destroyed public property should face the legal consequences. But President Trump is right when he says that we should consider a pardon against the victims of a weaponized system of justice. We should not be supporting BLM and Antifa rioters who torched downtown Minneapolis. That's what Kamala Harris did in 2020. It's what she's continued to do to this very day. You could still contribute money to their bail fund up to this very morning because Kamala Harris is soft on crime. She is a failed San Francisco liberal.
Impossible to argue, man. I really, really appreciate Tom Cotton. But honestly, man, it's crazy. Man, but what's upsetting is not that we have like literally truly intelligent and thoughtful people like Tom Cotton on the conservative side. What's upsetting is the fact that our media is just so incredibly just in the tank and dishonest, man. Just so in the tank. There wasn't one honest question or statement made by CNN there. I mean, every single bit of that interview was literally crafted to be of service to the reshaping of the Kamala Harris brand. And man, that is not journalism. I don't know what that was, but it's not journalism. And I don't even really think that these mouthpieces like this guy on CNN, I don't think they really even understand what they're serving here. You know, they're doing what they're told. And in a lot of cases, they're just tribalists that just for whatever reason just must see their side win at the cost of everything, basically. I mean, they can't possibly see the damage that they're potentially doing to not only their own party by supporting this coup, but the damage that a person like Kamala Harris could actually do to the functions of government. I mean, they cannot possibly understand the fire that they're playing with. I mean, if they did,